SJB. This project is called 51 Langridge Street. It's on the corner of Langridge and Wellington Street in Collingwood. It's a workplace office design. And it builds on a lot of our work we've done in workplace design, and particularly a project called 40 Albert Street, which was Australia's first 6-star Green Star refurbished building. And it really tries to reimagine a lot of the typical attributes of a traditional office building, and so we'll go through that. So we're saying it's not just about statistics and metrics, it's about actually what it does that's quite meaningful to the occupants and to passers-by. So the site's located in Collingwood, as I said, stone's throw from the city, connected via a lot of transport, trams, trains, buses down Hoddle, and actually on one of the major bike paths as well that connects from the Yarra River and other parts of Wellington coming in from the north. So that's just looking closer at the context. It's really mainly an industrial context historically, and we start to draw on a lot of that richness of the area. So you see a lot of wool stores, fabric merchants, boot makers, manufacturing that's in the area. The site's really small actually. It's only 33 by 15 33 metres by 15. And by the time there was setbacks, it ends up being sort of 28 by 12 that we had to work with. So it's a very tight footprint, and it's bookended on each of the corners with heritage buildings. You can see in that one, the cycling paths that are very significant bike paths in that part. So they're very well utilised. So we wanted to harness that as well. Conceptual drivers, these were 5 fundamental things that started to drive the building and what it was about. Porosity, how the building could live and breathe and not be a traditional building that's often a curtain wall closed off to the outside environment. This is very open, and we'll come to that, what it means as far as gardens and other apertures. Textiles and fabrication, the obvious reference to its location. Urban ecology, introducing greening, more greening than would have ever been on the site even 1,000 years ago. So that's an important thing to consider, how we can do that with more buildings in Melbourne. Well-being, walkability, incidental interaction, all of these things, and local materials. Ground level, just starting to look at the degrees of permeability. So you can come in off, a myriad of sort of positions, whether you're coming in for the bikes, there is a handful of cars, and so being able to meander through the site at ground level is really important. And you can see here just how small the footprint is now. A typical level, and we'll come back to this in a minute, but you can see it's only 11 and 12 metres wide. So doing lighting analysis, the whole floor plate's actually naturally lit most of the day, which is really impressive. You don't need to use artificial lighting. It's got operable glass louvers on all 4 sides, which open up to the outside world, obviously. So we have a mixed mode mechanical, but it means the building can naturally breathe irrespective of where the wind's coming, because you can open up any side. Which is, again, not often seen. I know the building we work in, which is a lovely building, you can't actually open any windows. This was the idea of a green garden that actually ran up the building, cutting out 10% of every floor level. So it's a really big thing to say to a client, they're going to lose a lot of saleable area, but the benefits will be a lot better, basically. And we'll come to that in more detail. They end up being 7 metre high green walls on every level. And then the notion of walkability, circulation, incidental incidental interaction that happens on this stair. This is the only stair in the building. It's a scissor stair, and it's on the outside of the building. Very few buildings would have their only stair externalised. We think this is a really interesting attribute, and talks to people from the outside as well, that reminds them of the importance of walkability and exercise, and you don't have to just put the stair in a concrete bunker that no one uses. Again, just looking at the ground level, you can sort of see there's a corner tenancy, there's a small core, and by the time we had to have a substation and a car stacker, and that ended up being a ramp, and by the time we get our bikes in, it's a very small footprint to be working with, particularly at ground floor. The typical level, again, you can see that stair hanging off the side of the building, and that void that is expressed on every level kind of shifts across. Just some sketches. We do a lot of drawing to start to illustrate and think about what the building might look like and how it might feel. This history became a really important story as well, the boot making and the rag trade. There's so many buildings in Collingwood that are of this use historically. So the textiles became something we wanted to embed in the project as well. The notion of weaving, lacing, which you actually see the stitching in the way we designed the stair. It feels like that notion of lacing and patterning. We did a lot of modelling to show what these custom concrete panels could look like. They're sort of a woven, knitted effect. They were, they ended up being moulds that we had to design, obviously on computer, and work out exactly how we wanted them to look and feel. And then we obviously did prototyping to see them, and they're really effective. They're quite beautiful how they look and how they kind of the depth that's created. They weren't ever meant to be brick. It was purely taking the module of the brick, but creating a patterning that talked to the weaving and the textile. Early renders that were actually used at council in the end. Same here, 5-star Green Star was designed to that, but that actually, other attributes of the building we think exceed the metrics that it was about. The brick base and then the concrete upper, and that's seen in a lot of the buildings where they have a brick base and then the concrete sort of detailing above. That all-important stair, 200 square metres of vertical garden that's introduced, and then another 230 square metres of rooftop and green edges. So there's more greening that's been put back on this site than it ever could actually have had. Did a lot of detailing, obviously, just to work out how the concrete lintels, which are a bit of a nod to the concrete lintels and sills in the area, how they would work, how the sort of hit and miss brick would work, and a whole raft of other details, obviously, that needed to be worked through. Deep angled concrete blades on the side, and then louvers control the sun to the west. The stair had to be designed to avoid vertigo, so it had all these other detailing, highly complex as far as the engineering, to just have an external stair, because firefighters aren't always supportive of how you're going to achieve that. End of trip facilities in the basement, and then the ground floor, just looking at that tenancy, bookable communal meeting room and the lobby, how they sort of all coexist. And the typical floor plan. Rooftop garden, around 40 panels of PV. And I'll get to the photography, obviously, to finish. The 8 minutes goes quick. And it really was realised exactly how we wanted it, and the way it sits against the building. There's references and nods to the different kind of geometry you see in the area. The big arched entry really draws you into the building. The gardens are starting to look amazing. You go into those spaces there, it's quite compelling being in them. Again, just that notion of porosity. The idea that greening always finds a way to kind of grow out and reveal itself in the natural environment. The textiles and fabric. There's some beautiful shots here from Derek Saul. That's there again, how bold it is, allows great views back to the city as well. It was deliberately quite industrial and simplified. It wasn't meant to be highly sort of, fiddly. We just wanted it very clean and sort of industrial looking. Views out from the stair back to the city, so it actually becomes a viewing platform.